Hi everyone, this is Paul Stewart here from Segmented Solutions. Thought I'd do a quick video about VAT when you're buying commercial property. It's something I get asked a lot of questions about, so I thought it's about time that I sat down and gave you a video which can be shared amongst the SaaS trustee world or the property world. These are my notes on VAT and commercial property. Now the crucial point here is this is all about buying commercial property. I'm not talking about what's allowable expenses after you're VAT registered and all of that stuff. It's literally the key things that I keep being asked questions about when it comes to SSAS's buying commercial property. I hope it's of some help, but it's free of charge to be circulated and distributed as you want. So here we go, VAT and commercial property. The first thing is to check if the property actually has been opted for tax. Now, will there be VAT added to the purchase price or not? It's a really important thing to check because it's not just taking somebody's word for it and saying, okay, yes, VAT will be added. It's about the background and you need to know what questions to ask. So, for example, has the seller properly opted that property for tax? Now, they may have bought it and paid VAT when they bought it 10 years ago. They may well be charging VAT to the tenant on the rent. But if they haven't opted it themselves and they can't provide you with a copy of the confirmation that the property is opted for VAT, then they're going to have to do something. And we actually do see this quite a lot. People buy a property, they hear the words an option to tax lasts for 20 years, they speak to the seller and the seller says, I've only had it for 8. So they assume that the seller's option carries on when they buy the property, and it doesn't. So it might be the person you're buying it from hasn't actually opted the property at all. They've just assumed and carried on paying the VAT and claiming the VAT expenses. So they, as a seller, would have to go through a process called a belated option to tax, such that they can then get the confirmation from HMRC that you need in order to know what the VAT position is. So when you're acting as a SaaS administrator or SaaS trustee, you actually need to know what questions to ask of the seller. Final question is, how long ago did they opt it for tax? Because if they opted it 35 years ago, then the 20 years is up and you do actually have the opportunity to talk to them and say, well, okay, I'm going to remove that option when I buy the property. It may have certain ramifications on the seller, and that's a conversation to be had. So has it been opted? Have they got confirmation they can show you, and how long ago was it done? 3 really important starting points. The next thing is, what are you actually planning on doing to the property? Because there may be VAT exemptions that apply. And it really does make a big difference. So it's really important you know up front before you buy the property what it is that you're going to be doing to it. If you're buying it and it's got a tenant in place and the tenant is staying on, then it may qualify for a thing called TOGC, which means that you physically don't have to pay VAT on the purchase price, which helps with cash flow. I'm going to go into TOGC in a minute. I'm going to explain what it is and give you some background notes on that too. So just letting you know, there is an exemption, which is TOGC. The other is, if you plan to convert the entire property into residential accommodation, you can actually remove the option to tax using a VAT 1614D. However, the ramifications are there as well. So I'm going to look at both TOGC and the removal of the option in just a minute. So what is TOGC relief? Well, it stands for transfer of a going concern. Basically means that you're transferring a tenant from one landlord to another. It's a going concern. They're not moving out. They're not having their tenancy changed. They're literally just staying on. The only difference is they'll be paying somebody else. This requires a substantive tenant to be staying in the property. You can't buy an enormous multi-million-pound commercial building and have somebody rent a cupboard in one of the rooms. It has to be a substantive tenant, and I'm not going to go into all of the rules and regulations around what is defined as a substantive tenant, because in most cases, if it's got a tenant, it will be the whole of the property that is rented or leased out. But if you've got queries and questions about what is substantive, then that's where you have to go and get VAT advice, because it will depend on your circumstances. I'm just giving you some knowledge so that you can know what questions to ask. What this means is, with TOGC relief, is that you don't have to physically pay the VAT on the purchase. So there will be VAT, but you physically don't have to pay it. You still have to be VAT registered. You've still got to get your SSAS or yourself or whichever person is buying the property still have to be VAT registered in order to claim this relief. Now, when you go for a VAT registration, it might be that HMRC are a little bit snowed under and they might take a little while. So it's important you understand this next bit. You cannot complete on your purchase until you get your VAT number if the rental income is less than the VAT threshold, which is applicable at that time. So if you're renting if a property is already rented out and the tenant is paying £45,000 a year, that's below the VAT threshold, and therefore you've got to wait until you've got a VAT number before you complete on the purchase if you're wanting to claim TOGC relief. The flip side applies. If the rent is £200,000 a year, that's way above the VAT registration threshold, then you can complete on the purchase prior to actually getting your VAT number. What you have to do is show the conveyancing solicitor that you have submitted your application and you're just waiting. Now, that last point is really useful because HMRC did go through a period where there were long delays in getting VAT numbers, and that would cause an issue. The other issue I talked about was conversion of property. If you are going to convert an entire property, I've already mentioned the VAT form that you can fill in to remove the option to tax, but you can't just do that and think that that's the end of the matter, because there is a but. You'll need to actually speak to the seller and tell them that you are going to be using this VAT form and that you are going to be removing the option to tax, because it impacts them. They will not be able to claim back any of the VAT associated with the costs of selling the property, and depending on the history, they might actually have to pay back VAT claimed on works that have been carried out on that property within the last 10 years. So you actually need to speak to the seller and tell them, my plan is to convert the property, my plan is to remove the option to tax. Can we sit down and have a conversation about the financial ramifications on you as the seller, because I'm prepared to cover what would effectively be your increased costs. So you can't just do it and hope that it'll be allowed, because the seller has the ability to actually stop you in your tracks and say, no, I'm not going to allow that because I've just done loads of work and I'm going to have a VAT bill and somebody's got to pay it. So conversion is an exemption. You are allowed to do it. Removing the option, yes, you are allowed to do it. But if you remove the option, you need to be prepared to talk to the seller first. Okay, question. Do you actually have to opt a property? Can you avoid it altogether? Well, yeah, sure. If you're buying an opted property, you do not have to opt it for tax yourself. You literally can just buy the property and do nothing. However, if you wanted to avoid VAT registration and having to charge VAT on rent, you can press ahead without doing any form of VAT registration. But the kicker is you will still have to pay VAT to complete on the purchase, but you will have no ability to reclaim that VAT, because you've decided that what you don't want to do is to opt the property, and you don't even want to be VAT registered. So you'll buy it, you'll pay the VAT, it'll be money down the drain. So yes, you do have the flexibility of doing that as well. Final point on VAT. It's a black art and there's an awful lot of detail behind the scenes. So if in doubt, please seek professional VAT advice. I'm not here giving you professional advice. We do VAT registrations for SSASs. We understand the process, we understand the paperwork that's involved and the questions that are asked during that process of purchase. However, what we can't do is give you formal advice on what is a substantive tenant, for example, in terms of TOGC. I just wanted to put this video out there because I think in the last 6 months I've been asked these questions about half a dozen times a month, and so I thought to save everyone the time and effort of reading my posts in various forums or phoning me up to answer questions, a video can be circulated, and like I say, it's on YouTube and anyone can copy and paste the link into any forum that they wish or into any group that they wish. This is just free general VAT information about buying property using a SSAS. There's all my details. You've got a QR code there that'll take you to my digital business card, which contains all the videos and background and history, and there's Segmented Solutions details, and of course Elite Wealth Services, my tax advisory business. I hope that was of some use. It was just a really quick run through, a quick 10-minute for you, as a thank you to everyone who supports what I do. So much appreciated, and I hope you enjoyed it. Bye bye.